Hey everybody, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, coming to you after a wild one, 103-99 win over Kansas to start off a new basketball season. Actually coming to you from Honolulu. The Armed Forces Classic was tonight at the Stan Sheriff Center on the campus of the University of Hawaii. This game was actually originally supposed to be played on the base at Pearl Harbor. I know there were some misconceptions about the actual original site. I think some people were wondering if it was going to be one of those games that was played on an aircraft carrier, but it was actually going to be played on the base at Pearl Harbor. There's like a 4,000 seat gym, old wooden gym, and they were going to play there. But ticket demands for this game, and also Michigan State, Arizona. I guess at some point they realized we could get a lot more people in some place that was a little bit bigger, so they ended up at the Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu on the campus of Hawaii, and turned out to be a heck of a ball game. Where to start? Let's start with the fact that James Blackman Jr. is back. 26 points tonight, his first game since late December last season. Just a comeback show. He's been talking for the last really 2 months about just how excited he was to actually get on a court in a game that mattered and meant something, and boy did this game mean something to Indiana, beating the number 3 team in the country. Again, 103-99. James Blackman wasn't the only guy who stood out on this evening. Curtis Jones, too. My goodness. Talk about debuts. Curtis Jones had 15 points. I think he had, 8 in the first 6 minutes? And then he closed with 7 in overtime. And, he's hitting big shots. He and Blackman both hit some big shots, both the three-pointers that they both hit. Obviously, Blackman, that's kind of his game, 4 for 8 from three-point range. And Jones, too, with some pretty big shots, especially in that overtime period. You could go up and down the box score and say something about just about everyone in this game. You could say something about the fouls. I think there were combined 63 fouls, 17 lead changes, 16 ties. This game had pretty much something for everybody. It was a game that I don't think Indiana they didn't have a lead bigger than 5. Basically, it was, I don't want to say playing catch-up, but they put themselves in a little bit of a hole early on. Wasn't a great start. I think their first 8 shot attempts, or maybe, I think it was 8, were all from three-point range. They didn't attempt a 2-point shot until about 7 minutes into the game. So a little bit uneven. There was some lulls even at the end of the first half where I think shot selection and just pacing was just a little off, not where you really want, even as a team that plays fast, not exactly where you want just the pace of the game. I thought at times, too, Indiana looked like a team that lacked a voice. They lacked, that true point guard that they've had for 4 years. I think 5 or 6 different guys handled the ball at times. Juwan Morgan did it. Devontae Green occasionally did it. Josh Newkirk, obviously. Blackman, Johnson, Curtis Jones. How many is that? Anyway, there are a lot of different guys, a lot of different cooks in the kitchen, and I'm not always sure that worked out great to Indiana's advantage. But I thought, especially in the second half, certainly in the case of Newkirk early on in the second half, he settled in. Curtis Jones, obviously, in his moments, not necessarily just handling the ball, but just being where he needs to be, and frankly, just having just the confidence to take some of the shots that he took today. I think there was just some resiliency too, not just confidence, but resiliency in the way Indiana handled itself at the free throw line. With those, 63 fouls? Yeah, 63 fouls. Indiana finished 26 of 36 at the free throw line. That's after they started 10 of 18, so they only missed 2 free throws down the stretch in the second half, and those were 2 in a row in the same sequence by Robert Johnson, actually 2 pretty big ones that might have made a difference in the game that did go to overtime. But again, this was a very impressive win, beating the number 3 team in the country. I wasn't sure what kind of team Indiana would look like in this game. It's a season opener. They're always kind of difficult to predict. I think we saw a little bit of everything from Indiana in this game, good and bad. But by and large, this was, again, a resilient effort, an effort that required a lot of different hands. I think Indiana had already. Tom Crean reached into his bench and played about 10 guys about 11 minutes into the game. So there's a lot of mixing and matching, different rotations at play, and I'm sure we'll see that, of course, over the next couple of weeks as I guess really they built that next game, that next big game against North Carolina here at the end of the month in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It's a game Indiana trailed 46-42 at halftime. Again, slow start. Settled in over the middle course of the game. I think Thomas Bryant had a big reason. Was a big reason for that. Thomas Bryant actually had the first 2 points of the game, both on three-pointers. He finished 2 for 5 from three-point range, and Woodieff total 19 points, 10 rebounds, double-double for him. He fouled out. He was one of 7 guys in this game to foul out, 3 of which came from Indiana. Juwan Morgan and Robert Johnson also collected 5 fouls. I mean, the whistles were just ridiculous. They were overly officious at times. They were absent at times, and you name it. It was just... we got to get these officials some off-season work to get them ready to start a season, because they were all over the place today, and it was we would have to do a separate scoop talk to really run through the issues with some of the fouls they've called in this game. I mean, objectively speaking, this was a terribly officiated game in so many ways. But beyond that, again, I kind of go back to the word resilient. Indiana kept coming. Throughout some of the lulls. I mean, Kansas had at one point in the first half had an 11-0 run. Indiana struck back. Again, the second half was much more topsy-turvy. But again, I was really impressed with just the will of James Blackman Jr. coming back and again hitting some big shots, taking the ball, wanting the ball in key moments, and the same could be said for Curtis Jones. Juwan Morgan, too, I should say. You touched on him fouling out. I thought, I tweeted this earlier, I thought he played some really important basketball, just as a guy who, he grabbed 10 rebounds, first of all, but I think, with the deflections that Tom Crean's staff loves to count, I think when they go back to the film and really review his night, they'll find a lot of other little things that he did. And again, deflections in general are very subjective. They can be just about anything. It doesn't really have to be actually touching the ball. It could just be being in the right spot and in a certain situation. But that's what Juwan Morgan, by and large, did tonight, and that's a guy I'm really excited to watch come into his own this year. Just a very versatile skill set. Again, we saw him taking the ball up the court a few times. There's a lot to like there. OG Anunoby was all over the place again today, too. He finished with 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks. Again, this was just a very impressive effort from Indiana. It's a team that, I'm curious to see how the point guard situation unfolds moving forward. However, I like the personnel that they have. This is a really intriguing team. It's frankly a very likable team too, just from both the personality standpoint and skill set too. I mean, there's just a lot of guys who fit in a lot of different roles in a lot of different ways. And as we saw tonight, I mean, there's so much mixing and matching that they're going to do, and possibly to the team's own detriment. But I think we're going to see a lot of different flavors of this team as they move forward into the month of November. That'll do it for this one. I'm always awkward at these solo scoop talks. I need Jeremy to bounce these things off of. But that's wrapping up a 103-99 win. Indiana knocks off number 3 Kansas and heads back home to the mainland. It'll be a lot more enjoyable flight than it was last Thanksgiving, when Indiana had just dropped 2 or 3 in the Maui Invitational. Someone brought that up to Tom Crean after the game, and he didn't want anything to do with it. Fair, but it's safe to say that they were feeling good after that game. This was a game they really wanted for a lot of different reasons. Certainly getting off on the right foot, national TV game, you're number 11 in the country. I mean, just getting off on the right foot and figuring out who you have. And I think that there was a lot of, we saw a lot of different faces and we saw a lot of different ways that guys can play. And it was just a really, really intriguing. I'm going to be interested to go back and watch this on film and really try to catch some things I didn't see in person. But it was a really fun basketball game. And this could be a pretty fun season. So, wrapping it up from Honolulu, Mike Miller, Herald Times. See you soon.